Good evening, everybody. Good afternoon, even, and welcome to the Cabinet meeting of Melton Council. Elected members are reminded that we will be using the audio-visual system this afternoon, and the meeting will also be streamed live on YouTube. Members of the public and visitors are respectfully reminded that this is a formal meeting of Cabinet and not a public meeting today. Elected members and officers are asked to physically raise their hands in the usual way to indicate that they wish to speak and to use the microphone when speaking. Please remember to switch off. Evacuation procedure. In the event of having to evacuate the council chamber, please leave by one of the 6 emergency exits around the side of the chamber. Please assemble at the far side of the front County State Park. This will be on hand for anyone distance. Public recording of the meeting. Legislation allows the public to film, record, use social media at a council meeting. This must not be disruptive of the meeting, include any filming meeting area. Public toilets are available through the right and on the right. I now declare the Cabinet open. Agenda item 1, apologies. Only one apology, Councillor Glancy. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Do any members wish to share an interest as set out on page 3 to 5 of the agenda paper? So I do have to make one statement. Although I have no interest as set out on pages 3 to 5, but for complete transparency and the avoidance of any doubt, I confirm that on the 27th of October, at a public meeting, I committed a personal gift of £500 to a group seeking to make a proposal to the Loughborough College in order to retain the college theatre. Although the college soon after has turned such a proposal down and will, I understand, offer the theatre and campus for sale, there remains an outside possibility, I emphasise that outside possibility, that a fresh offer might be made. If that is the case, I reaffirm my offer of a personal gift and double it to £1,000. I do so on the basis that my gift relates only to the college theatre and that retaining the theatre is not incompatible with the proposals for a cultural hub at the Stockyard, which we will be considering. Now, I also confirm, for the sake of clarity and avoidance of any doubt, that I wrote to the college chief executive on the 29th of October and received a reply on the 3rd of November confirming that the college no longer wished to use any of the LUF money which we had been awarded and had been transferred to the Stockyard. The rest, as they say, is history and is not germane to this agenda. I now turn to agenda item 3, the Stockyard. A reminder that this is a key decision and is therefore susceptible to call in to scrutiny. Also, a reminder that pages 41 to 50 of the order paper contain exempt information. Now, members have had an opportunity to raise queries, but if you wish to refer to the exempt information, we will need to consider invoking Schedule 2A, Paragraph 3 of the Local Government 1972 Act. Colleagues, this evening we have a significant and weighty matter to consider. Our decisions today will mark the final stages of RIBA 4, that's Royal Institute of British Architects Schedule 4, and open the way to the start of physical construction next year and completion with within the schedule agreed by the Joint Executive Board of the LUF programme and with government. I have to say, governments of both political colours. We are due to finish this meeting at 6 p.m. and we have another meeting to follow. Now, for simplicity, I will formally move the recommendations which are contained on pages 8 to 9 of the order paper. I'll move them en bloc, and I ask Councillor Sarah Cox to formally second them at this stage.
Yes, I'm happy to second them, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Now, if we agree as a result of any of our discussions to any modifications to the recommendations, we can then accept them into the main motion, which we've just moved, or we can do it by an amendment, but we'll see how we go on that. Now, referring to pages 8 and 9, the 19 recommendations, excuse me, of those, a number are simply to note information provided. Members may have questions on the information contained in the report, which you've had for some time. Now, a number of routine delegations are there also to officers to execute various pieces of work and authorise expenditure pursuant to our decisions. I believe that these delegations are, on the whole, uncontroversial in the sense that they are quite routine, but members may have questions for clarification. I'll take those as we go through. And then, of course, there are a number of approvals and decisions to make. The approvals and decisions cover 4 main areas: the design changes, construction procurement, that's to say procurement of the construction team, and the project team itself, and then fourthly, the operator strategy, which is post-construction. All the proposed changes are tabled in the light of the routine RIBA4 review and the slightly increased flexibility offered by the government. But I have to say they also take account of representations made by frequent users of the Trader Hall and the general public concerned about car parking. So we've been listening and we've been taking those comments on board. Now, before discussing these proposals, I think it would be helpful just to remind ourselves of how we've got to this point, and if we can have on the laser display board, the first image, that would be helpful. Okay, and then to the second image, please. Now, just to remind us, oh no, the second image. That's the one. That's beautiful. So you'll see at the bottom, 2022. So in August of that year, this council, along with Rutland County Council, supported by Alicia Cairns, the MP, made a submission to the then government, which was called Rural Innovation in Place at that stage. And notice the circle top left. Even at that stage, there was an indicative building considered, and that's out for future reference in the discussion. That's the anchor building. Okay, so if we go on to the next one, those are the 3 colleagues who signed up to the deal. Alicia Cairns on the right, MP, the former leader of this council, and then the leader of Rutland County Council, who I've met this year at the LGA conference. I have to say she regarded me as a gentleman who could be trusted. So that's good news, isn't it, Ed? I think we agree with that. So if we move on to the next diagram, the next slide. Now that was also in the pack that went to government. So that again shows what we call the anchor building as viewed from Skelford Road. So it goes through to the end. And if we go on to the next one, please, Adam. Okay, so that's Skelford Road by the tavern, and you can see it clearly down through there. So even at that stage, we were looking at as we submitted the application, that's what we were thinking about. And then on to the next 2, please. Next one, Adam. Now this picture depicts what was envisaged in 2022. That's what we call the square, which we'll come on to in a minute. That's on site E of the whole area. And at that stage, what was envisaged was a multi-purpose event space and car park. Interestingly enough, the presentation there of the big cinema screen did cause some of us to consult with the owners of the cinema in Melton. We were a bit concerned that there might be some conflict, but they assured us when I was elected that actually they didn't see it as a competition at all. They felt it would be an enhancement. Whether that comes to fruition or not, that will be down to the operators of this site as we move forward. And if we go on to the next one, the next slide, interestingly enough, in the submission to government in 2022, it was envisaged that that same square would be utilised for open air, emphasis open air performing arts of different descriptions. I suspect that picture actually comes from the theatre. I recognise one or two faces, but that was what was envisaged at that time when the application was made to government, and I want to emphasise that. Can we move on to the plan then? Now, do you mind if I just take a sip? That diagram, which we've seen in full council several times in answer to questions and to presentations by myself, shows very simply the extent of the whole, I call it cattle market area. Now, site A, which is the mauve one right at the top, that's relevant because from day one of the application, it was envisaged by this council and it was confirmed in the minutes of the council meeting on the 23rd of March 2023, which I have with me and is available to see by anyone online, that that piece of land would be sold off to provide the match funding for this whole project. And colleagues will remember that one of the first things we had to do when we were elected to office was to confirm that proposal, which we did, and also to confirm the mix of housing that would be acceptable. I want to pause for a moment there and explain that the sale was agreed subject to planning permission, and the planning permission for that site went through the normal planning procedure, and all of us were excluded from that process, quite rightly. As it happens, I and Councillor Brown, that's Mike Brown, are the local ward members, and we received representations as the local ward members about that site. There were three areas of concern. The first was antisocial behaviour. The second was the smell from the cattle market, the removal of excrement after market days, and the third was the fact that the new buildings, as proposed, would overshadow and remove their daylight. Well, as you know, I couldn't get involved in the planning application, but the planning committee dealt with those issues insofar as they were planning issues. And I'm delighted to say that when I raised it with the manager at the stockyard, they were very sympathetic to processing cattle excrement after market days. It's difficult. We're it's a rural environment, and it's been there for some years. So there we are. Now, it's significant that because the length of time it takes to effect the sale, subject to planning permission, the 106 agreements, to discharge conditions, and so on and so forth, does drag the process out. Now, there's a leitmotif there because to some extent, the little drift we've had in the project is partly due to these planning conditions that we've had to deal with. I'm delighted to say, in parenthesis, that when the planning application went through, it went through with a bit of Section 106 money for primary care or doctor's surgery. So that was a bit of a bonus. Now, moving down the plan, and this refers directly to, let me see, it's 2.13 of the recommendations on page 9. That is the car park. Now, when we were elected to office, that car park had been identified as a potential asset for sale. Various bits of work were done to soft market, to test the market, hotels, retail, old people's homes, the whole shebang. Now, that was still a possibility. We were a bit diffident about it, you remember, but we did say we would pursue that gently because we know how long these things take. However, and this is where the car parking paragraph comes in, and the thick report that we've had on car parking, it is quite clear that site should not be sold off. We should retain it at least for the construction period, if not longer. When we come to consider this paragraph 2.13, I think we might just change the wording a little to emphasise that we see it long term as being a car park. So I emphasise back to what I said earlier. We've been listening to people. I received a petition of 200 signatures from local people asking us not to get rid of it as a car park. And I think on the whole, that is very wise, and we can really go forward with that. Now, the other thing relating to the plan, as you can see, the yellow is our friends Gilstream. Essentially, that's their patch. And I want to say, as a diversion, that there's no doubt in my mind that the sale of livestock animals on that site is second to none. I think it's got a national and indeed an international reputation, and I've been pleased to shout out the existence of that market when I've been to business meetings, I've appeared on radio, and I've written articles. That is the bee's knees when it comes to selling livestock animals, no question of that. And I'm delighted to take this opportunity to emphasise that fact. Now, the lower portions, Site E and Site D. Now, just to remind ourselves, most of the Levelling Up Fund construction work and money was targeted back in 2022 and by ourselves on Site E. There was a little overlap onto Site D in 3 areas: the toilets, naturally, pathways between Skelford Road and Nottingham Road, and there was one building, from memory, I think I'm looking at Lydia as I say this, I think it was it Production Hub 2. I think that's how it was called. So that was the other one. Now, when we took office in 2023, I had to sign the documentation, back-to-back legal documentation with Rutland County Council. And we were told at the time that even then, there's a possibility that the budget as planned might not stretch to all those buildings. And we discussed the possibility of one of the production hubs not being built. So that happened then. And as you also know, at that time, we were told by the college that they were, and by the further education commissioners, that they were considering withdrawing from the LUF programme, which they confirmed in December of that year. Now, if we can move on to the next visual, that shows Site E and D. And the important thing to note is that the production hub on the extreme left-hand side in the middle, the square, I think it's 02 on the plan you've got. I think have you got this map in the bundle of documents? Okay, you all right, Steve? Okay, so that is the I call it the one next to the fire station for ease of identification. That was the one that appeared from the word go from 2022 as the likely location for it. The architects felt that the eye needed to be drawn down that main route from Skelford Road towards the Nottingham Road, and we've retained that through various iterations of design. Okay, then the thin block to the south of it is, of course, the block that I wanted to knock down, but I was outvoted in cabinet. I wanted to get rid of it and plant trees there, but there we go. I can't win them all, can I? Democracy prevails. I'm not a dictator. So those were the starter units, and we did think that perhaps the changing spaces, the special toilets for changing, which we agreed to include in the programme, could go there. But it's part of the changes that are being proposed that they don't go there, they go elsewhere on the site. Now, down at the bottom, where on the number is 16 on your plan. Okay, so right down the bottom. Now, that was where we were hoped to have starter units, but as envisaged in 2023, that might be one of the casualties So what's being proposed in this document tonight is that we do not go forward with a building, but we do place in situ, thinking of the word, sorry, facilities, plug-in facilities and the like. So for future reference, for future use. Now, going on to the square, the main differences we're looking at tonight are really that car parking and events don't quite mix in the way that was originally envisaged when the application was put in. But that's really a detail. But what we are doing is definitely making certain that the surface is right, usable for pop-up events, the Matthew O'Callaghan style event, if I can put it that way, and that there are services in situ, so places to plug in and I presume to drain into where appropriate. But that will provide a much better user-friendly area. Then going up to the top on site E, we've got on the chart, it's green number 3. That's the main production hub. Now, refresh my memory. What number is that? Is that 1? Is it production hub 1? Yeah. Labels keep changing to confuse an old man, I think. Okay, so that's that. Now, moving across, we've still got the option to construct number 12, which is on site D, of course, and that will be another production hub with an open space to the north of it. Going further north, you've got little green 4 and 17, so that's where the toilets come into play and the changing places. Now, the thing that's different, of course, is that because the college withdrew from the programme, we've increased our capital grant, and that is being used on the Trader Hall. I'm speaking generally here, and the 2 units above it, which are the banqueting suite and the exhibition hall. Now, when we were first given permission by the government and the executive board to transfer that money into the stockyard, I did have a meeting with 3 people from performing arts groups and with a senior officer. And we were told by them that in terms of cubic capacity, the Trader Hall could be used for quite a useful performing arts area, not a theatre, but an area. And it would be a multi-use area which could be used for those sort of purposes and the traditional market. Now, since then, as part of the RIBA 4 process and all the reviews we've gone through, we've now come to the conclusion that that's not quite right. It won't quite fit. So the proposition tonight is that hall is a multi-purpose event space. The floor, which is dreadful, which is uneven and in places a bit dangerous, that will be seen to, and the asbestos roof, which has been leaking to my knowledge for 8 years, is we finally deal with it. Now, neither of those things were in the original programme. They were not in the original programme. So this is a real plus, and it's one of the things we responded to when listening to the traders who use that hall and other groups. Frankly, we all know it's been a disgrace for far too long, and by a bit of imagination and dexterity and wise use of the extra cash, we can put that to bed. Now, there's a lot of detail to go through. We're not going through that tonight. That's the aspiration. And then 6 and 7, that is the space to be used as a cultural hub. And you will see from the recommendation, there's a lot of work to do on that. That's not a done deal, but it will not be a theatre. So emphasise that, absolutely. Bear with me, it's worthwhile going through this detail. If you go on to the next slide, please, Adam. Now, those numbers that you see are the numbers that came out of the successful application, which was proclaimed in December 2022. It was formally lettered to us in the January, And at the meeting that I mentioned on the 23rd of March, before 2023, before we were elected to office, this was the financial state of play as envisaged for the stockyard, and that's without the extra money. So at that time, it was a grant of 10.1 million approximately, a capital receipt of 1 million, which would provide the extra funding. There's a bit of revenue. We receive no money from government for revenue, so we have to raise that on council tax as normal. So that was the position then. Now, if we go on to the next slide. So this is the position today, and it's just to reassure members that we've got control of the management of the money. And by the way, I think Chief Executive, it's fair to say that we were subject to audit at a very early stage. External audit, was it internal audit? I can't. Internal audit. Our processes and our financial controls were thoroughly audited, which I had nothing to do with. Now, the budget there, you can see that the on the left-hand side, the capital budget, including the match funding, is 13.6 million, and that includes the extra money from the college. Now, the actual money we've drawn down from government is, of course, much less than that. We don't receive all this money as a big swag bag and put it in the bank. We receive it as stage payments. So at every stage of the way, we have to justify what we're doing to government and to the executive board. By the way, the board I sit on, Councillor Sharon Brown sits on, Councillor Cox is invited to it, but unfortunately, he always sits on a day that she's working. So, but we have a very senior finance officer there too. So there's a certain amount of revenue costs which can be capitalised, as with any vast big capital program of this sort. Various people's time and work are capitalised into the program. Not everything, but that includes a bit of money for our own staff costs, and we actually have to pay a little bit to Rutland County Council for their staff costs. So that's the general picture there as of now, and the money is well under control. If we can move on, and I think it would be appropriate now to say a couple of other things of a general interest. I have received in the last few hours letters from our Member of Parliament, from Councillor Roland Brown, and from our 4 county councillors. Obviously, they've arrived too late for us to consider this evening, but I think most of what we're talking about covers their concerns, and I'll be writing to them in full with, I hope, very informative answers so that you've got the full picture of what the situation is. I'm inviting Councillor Sharon Brown to serve on the internal board. Can someone remind me what the name is? The programme board, which appears in the documents at one of the annexes, showing the who does what. Okay, so that now I've invited Sharon really because, of course, she's the portfolio holder for Inward Investment and Town Centre, and of course the what we've been about for the past 2 years is to ensure that this project is compatible and sympathetic with everything that we're doing generally in the town centre, so that the things are in harmony. Right. And before we go on, the planning, the other thing I want to mention is that the planning permission for Site E, the main planning permission, now that went through at the beginning of this year. It was subject to Section 106 agreements with mostly with County Council and with normal planning discharge of items, mainly around flooding and highways. Now that combined, and it's not a complaint at the County Council, it's just a fact of life, these things do militate to slow the whole process down, which is why tonight is so important, because We need to make a decision tonight so that work can commence this summer and we can remain on schedule and produce a quality product. So that's enough for me for the moment. I suggest that we perhaps go through the recommendations one at a time. Would that be helpful, colleagues? If you want to speak on any of them, please show your hand, raise your hand, and we'll. Yes, please do, Sarah.
I was just going to ask, Chair, if we just be given the opportunity to speak on just to speak on the programme so far, because I think it's really important we all speak about the journey that we've been on with this project, if that's okay. Yeah, if that's okay, and then move into. Yes, is that okay? Okay. Thank you. When I stood for council, I had grave concerns about the proposals in relation to the stockyard. I think many of our residents were already indicating that the infrastructure within the town was not meeting the growing demands of the community as our population grew, and that a lot of facilities were being neglected, and they saw that the whole of the investment was going to the stockyard. In addition, though, I do want to recognise the fact that I think nobody would fail to notice the growth in the cattle market locally and the growth in sales, which is really important to our farming community and to all of us as a town. So that was the balance that, as we were elected, we had to consider. I think thanks has to go to you, Chair, because the repeat attempts and approaches to government for flexibility around this budget that were rebuffed by both governments, so not just the past administration, but the current one as well, when we've repeatedly asked for money to be moved or be considered for other uses, such as leisure, such as the GP surgery, the things we felt the community really wanted from the project, and perhaps retailoring the designs that were before us. The other thing I was really frustrated about as we became elected as an administration was the lack of exploration of the financial stability of the parties involved in the project. I think Brooksby College very quickly indicated that they were financially in trouble. I think what hasn't been represented is the efforts that were made by this administration to approach Brooksby College as soon as they started withdrawing colleges from the town centre. There are people obviously sat in the audience, councillors who attended the college with myself, with Sharon, Councillor Butcher, to ask them about withdrawal of colleges, and it gave us all grave concern. Obviously, I am the finance portfolio holder, and my early, concerns were that we had money committed to a college that was stating and had intervention from the Department of Education because of its financial instability. At that time as well, LCC were also very hesitant to become involved in any project involving the building in the town centre due to the financial instability of Brooksby College. And I think one of the things that this administration will do going forward is any party that works with us on this project, the financial stability of them must be explored and secured. So any partner, any contractor, we need to ensure that their finances are all in order. And I'm quite surprised that any grant was awarded to an organisation, as having experience bidding for grants, to an organisation that was in such financial dire straits, it would appear. So my question is, what was done about that? And that was a real frustration to me as we came. I want to thank the officers that when the 2 million was rejected by Brooksby College, it was a race against time really to keep that money within the borough. And the discussions were, do we return it to government? Do we give it to Rutland? But as an administration, we were firmly of the belief we had to keep this in town somehow. And I want to thank the officers for very quickly coming up with an alternative that would meet the timescale, meet government requirements, and mean that we didn't have to return it to central government, which I totally support. I'm now frustrated at the merger with Loughborough College because, as a local councillor, I feel it's a bit of an asset strip going on in our town. And I know there are representatives about interests in that building, but we have to keep the two items separate now, because our commitment as an administration has got to be the design that's before us and to equip our officers to get this project delivered. But I wholeheartedly support their protestation around what is happening at that site. And lastly, just in relation to the budget, I do want to comment that we've shown the figures this evening and the amendments that have had to be made, and that is because we've been through a significant period of inflation, and inflation especially in the construction sector, which we can see builders are experiencing across the sector. And that's the only comments just in relation to how we came to this paper here. So I thank the officers for the paper that's before us and the proposal designs. So I'm happy to move on to recommendations, Chair.
Thank you. And you may remember we had a paper earlier this year at which the inflationary pressures had increased by 1.5 million, but by a bit of value engineering and value for money testing, we reduced that to 500,000, which is what we inflated the programme by. So we haven't gone the whole distance with inflation. We've kept it within limits. Sharon, please do.
I'd like to say that I agree totally with Councillor Cox. I think we all stood for the same principles when we stood. I wasn't at the start for the Stockyard project. I think if I'd have chose somewhere, I'd have put the 10 million somewhere else. But we were dealt with this. And I think if we'd have sent the money back to the government, it would have been a ridiculous idea, because we never would have got that chance again, because we've handed money back. So we've got to make the best of what we've got. So my points are with the connectivity for the town. We've got to make sure the two work together. That we make best use of the public purse of the money made on the Stockyard, so it goes to Melton. So Melton benefits with the money. We did do an independent assessment report, which came back. The viability of Melton represents the kind of investment that should be supported and encouraged. So that made me a bit happier, thinking that you know, that was the right thing for the town. I want to see the cattle market and Round Corner Brewery grow there, because I think they're really important. They're both, you know, the cattle market is one of the biggest in the UK, and Round Corner Brewery is worldwide renowned. So it'd be nice to see those businesses grow as part of the project, and thank the officers as well. And then I'll do have a few things later on when we do the recommendation. Yeah.
You don't have anything to say at this juncture, do you? No, that's good. So having done that bit, can we now plod through the list, as it were? Okay, so the 2.1 is to simply note that we've done the review, and thanks to everybody who's done it. Now, so far as the project team is concerned, we're asked to note certain things and to approve the appointment of the delivery team. Now that refers to REBA stages 5 and 7. So we're on page 8 at paragraph 2.2. Now that also cross relates to page 11, 5.13. And these are all roles which any project would be required to have filled. And I don't like the use of the word consultant all the time, because really we're not consulting them, we're paying them to do a job of work, as it were. Now, one question that does occur to me, which Lydia might be able to answer, having springing it on her, is that my dad was a clerk of works, so I sort of brought up with this, and I do get it. But the thing that always amazes me about any site of this magnitude is, well, who's actually in charge? So if somebody wanders onto the site with an RSJ on their shoulder and swings around and knocks somebody off a tractor, who's making certain all this sort of hangs together? Which of these people are in charge of the site, as it were? Or do you want to bring anybody else?
The contractor that we appoint will be in control of the site. We retain management oversight, which is in the papers in terms of the programme management, and then the list of trying to avoid the word consultant, specialist support that we are contracting. Each of their roles is described at 5.1.3. Some of those roles are good practice. Some of them are statutory roles in terms of our building control compliance. But for the actual site, it will be the contractor that we appoint, but there will be regular visits by the expertise that we have identified at 5.1.3.
Supplementary. Obviously, there's a lot of business as usual going on, and there'll be various stages of transition. So, who out of that team, if any, or if it's somebody else, tell me, who do the existing tenants on the site and other potential tenants, who do they relate to if they've got a query? You know, they want to get big business the ball through on a special day or something, or they feel something's going wrong. Because I want to make certain that our partners are well in the frame and know what's going on.
So we have established a single point of contact as a representative from Melton Borough Council. So the first point of contact will be with that single point of contact from Melton Borough Council.
I don't want things held up by committees. I want, you know, when things are happening, action has to take place, if you see what I mean. Okay, so thank you, Ed. So the next item at 2.3 is the usual sort of delegation to officers to do certain tasks. Does anybody have any questions on that or comments? So that looks to be okay. Now we're on to the section of construction procurement. So this is the process of actually awarding contracts and so on. We've got one to note. So the deadline is now updated by government, and that's all as it should be, which is quite handy. The second one, 2.5, is to note that the profile programme will be considered by council at the budget meeting. Now, just to remind ourselves, whatever we decide, it's within the council's overall capital programme. So it has to follow normal governance. So there's nothing exceptional about this. Chief Executive, would you like to say anything on this particular paragraph? Or Dawn?
Only to just reaffirm what you've just said. So this is part of our normal budget setting process. So obviously the updated timescale for delivering this project will be factored into the money required in each of the delivery years, and that will form part of our normal approvals of our capital programme when it goes to council in February. So as you say, it's standard practice, Leader.
Questions or comments on that? Yeah. Right, again, nods all round. So and that would apply also to 2.6 then, unless anyone's got anything to say. No. Okay. So thank you. So we're asked to approve the procurement strategy and the principles which will govern the procurement process set out in 5.2. Now 5.2 is on page 11. Do you have any comments, Sarah? Just give Steve a moment. Are you okay? Well, I'm not taking anything for granted. Everyone's entitled to an opinion here. Okay, so we're okay on that. So 2.7, we're okay. Right, okay. Now 2.8, we're delegating authority following the one above as normal to do all the work that's necessary to implement that. Any comments on that? 2.8. Good. Okay, so we're all right with that one. So now we're on to the design review. Now, I think there's a slight typo in the paragraph. I stand to be corrected at 2.9. REBA stage 4 review and set out in section 5.3. I think that should be 5.4. Okay. That is correct. So 5.4 commences on page 12. Okay, so this is where we get into what we all did 18 months ago when we approved the actual designs. So I suggest we just go through it so that everyone's got a chance to say something if they've got any concerns. If you can go to page 12, we've got a design review of the Anchor building. Does anybody have any concerns about that at this stage? Obviously, detail can be referred to the technical team if this, if you don't quite like the size of the window or the colour of the doorknobs or something, but in broad terms, what's being proposed, I think it's quite a good improvement actually on the original. It's providing a bit more utilisation. This doesn't say anything about who's using the building. It's just the building at this stage. Okay, all right. And just to make certain for due process, are there any planning implications on that one? I think there are none on that particular one. Okay, so we now move on to get it right. And the Anchor building.
Chair, can I just add at this point, I just want to thank the officers and the consultation that's taken place to lead to the design amendments for some of the commercial premises, because they've actually consulted with people that would potentially use that. So I want to thank the team for the work they've done on that, because some of the original designs would have prohibited food producers or the businesses we're trying to attract from utilising the premises because they were too small for food production. So at this stage, as we start to look at the design, I want to thank the officers and how they've briefed us and updated us on those consultations that have taken place. So thank you.
That's a very good point. They're not changes being made in a vacuum. They're in response to what people are telling us, which is very helpful. Okay. Yes, please, Sharon.
It's also that they're going to kit the inside out, which makes it more lettable, because before it was going to be a shell. So a new business would have had to have invested in more money to set that business up. But now they're going to have the facilities inside sort of done. That makes it easier.
Thank you for that, Sharon. Oh, that's a good point. So we're on to the Nottingham Road units. Could you put the plan back up, Adam, please? For that, I think. Keep going back. That's it. So the Nottingham Road units on the left-hand side, modifications there to make them more usable and to deal with the fact that the changing places proposal was not quite in the right site. So that's quite a good move, I think. That will please our friends at Birchwood, who've lobbied strongly for that. So that's a good thing. I don't think there's anything to worry the forces on this one.
Can I add there, Chair, that we did win on that one with you, because that's a Victorian building and we wanted to retain some of the character. So I think Cabinet won on that one, and I'm very glad we did. So thank you.
Always happy to concede to my Cabinet colleagues. That's fine. So and the planning changes are dealt with under section 73 planning regs. So that's okay. No delay in factor there, which is very helpful. Now we go on to the new piece of the action, if I can put it that way, the food and trader hall. So here, the name of the game is flexibility. It might be worth, Adam, going down the slides to the cultural outputs revision slide. Sorry to mess you about. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. That's it. That's it. So this is where we essentially encapsulate the extra things that we're managing to achieve over and above the original programme. So this is the trader hall. Now we did, as part of the planning application, it was a hybrid application. It was a full application for Site E, but for this it was outline only. So just to re-emphasise that what we're doing there, we're dealing with the roof problem and the floor problem, and of course lighting and other things relating to it. So that will be quite an exciting time. The timing of that work is going to be interesting because we've got to think about the people who are using it on Tuesdays at the moment. But that's a detail for the technical team to deal with, not for us tonight. But certainly we need to acknowledge that. Are there any questions or comments about that at this stage? It's a lot of work to do in the future. I think I'm looking around. Okay. All right. Well, we can move on from the trader hall. And then we're back to production hub 1. Could you go back to the plan, Adam, please? You're a good man. Well done. Thank you. So, is that number 3 on the plan? Is it number 1? It is, isn't it? Okay. Should keep the numbers the same. It will help an old man, you know, who's chairing this. So we're back to production hub 1. Now, does anybody have any questions on that, on those changes, such as they are? Again, in planning terms, it's dealt with by section 73, so there are no major hold-ups there. If there's any questions about internal detail, that can be picked up by the technical team subsequently, but I think the broad brush is okay. Bearing in mind we've had these papers for some time now to pore over. Okay, shall we move on to production hub 2? If anybody comes up with something they've forgotten, when we've by all means bring it up at the end, as it were. If the light bulb goes on, you say, oh, I wish I'd asked about that and I forgot. So production hub 2. Again, there are no planning implications long term. It can be dealt with under 73. Now, at this stage, we're not concerned with what goes in the hub. It's just the fact that it's going to be built. All right. And nothing's closed down as far as that's concerned. You know, all takers can put in a bid and negotiate in the normal event. So nothing's being closed down at that point. Now, this was an interesting one because from day one we were told that it was probably going to be built all the way along, and then we changed that to allow for some open space. And I think that we've retained that open space element of it. If you may remember, I was quite keen on a hydroponic business. Like a lot of things, I get battered down on. So there we go. Who knows? Who knows? All right. So now production hub 3. This is the one that we're not doing. So that's the one that's on site on the block 16 at the bottom. That's right at the bottom. And that was always one that we thought might have to be deferred because of budgetary consequences. And so it's proving. But to re-emphasize again, we are going to be making it good and ready to be used in the future with proper things. Okay. Any questions on that? No. You all right, Pat? Okay, good. Thank you. So now we're on to my old favourite, the toilet block. I think You want to say something about the toilets, didn't you, Pat? I remember.
Yeah, it's only that there are diagrams in here, and I have some concerns sometimes, and partly because of the history with this council, that they should be really accessible and plenty of space for a wheelchair user to move around. Because we had one at the old Nottingham Road offices where it was called a disabled toilet, a toilet for disabled, and somebody in a wheelchair couldn't actually get into it. You know, so it needs some care to make sure that it is completely accessible. Thank you.
Devil's in the detail a bit, really, isn't it? Yeah. I'm looking at Lydia, who's looking at her colleagues. I feel certain that the toilets will be assessed in great detail for functionality and comfort. Shall we say? Yeah. Yes, Sarah.
I just want to add there, because we have considered obviously the demographic of the town, and certainly in the plans I've seen and discussions we've had, there's been consideration of more than just the change in space, having bars and supporting people with disabilities, because disabilities can come in all different types. So I think the development of a change in space, which will bring us to 2 in the town. We've obviously got Mencap, and then we've got we'll have this one. I think there's one in Carnegie Museum as well, but very limited accessibility because of opening hours. This one will be, you know, Birchwood came, they asked us, and we're really happy to support them. And I think that's a fantastic asset to the town.
Yeah. Yes. So
I'd just like to know on the toilets then. So if the toilets are in and they go down, there's one toilet and they go down broken, who do we assist to get them done straight away? Because in town, some toilets have been down for a long time and disabled people can't use them. So that's my concern on that, Chair.
Clearly an operational factor. So I was just thinking as you were saying that, and the others, clearly toilets are significant to this committee, as they will be to the public. So perhaps at a later date, we can have a bit of a presentation on what's envisaged, and on the operational side, how we can deal with that. I think that's most important. I think Councillor Innes is going to use the toilets. Okay, thank you, Andrew. Right, so I think we've given toilets a fair run for the money. Always a good topic. Okay, so move on from that. And now let's go back to the square, if I can. Quite a lot to say about the square, really, I think, because it could be either really good or it could be a right bag of nails, couldn't it, if it's mishandled, this sort of thing. Anybody got any thoughts about this at the moment or questions? Yes, please, Sharon.
You're talking about where the cinemas are, yeah. So I think, yeah. So I did have a conversation with officers yesterday, and I totally get where they're coming from. Martin's Law, if you'd have parked vehicles there and someone had got in it and drove through all the people, we wouldn't have been meeting Martin's Law. So I think it's really sensible to move the parking out of the event centre.
Chimes in with the proposal about car parking with site B, you know, because I think we've learnt a bit on that really as we've gone along, because it's quite clear that you can't cram too much in there on any one day. And obviously the operational side, you know, management of cars, that's vehicles on and off the site, and when market day and so on, that's very much an operational matter which we can come on to in due course and season through the board. I would suggest to keep our eyes on that. But tonight it's not a big policy issue, it's or a budgetary issue. That's something downstream which we'll have to deal with, I think. So I'm sure officers are noting that we'll want to keep an eye on that. Any other thoughts about the square? Not EastEnders, is it? No, the square. Right. Okay. Good. Okay, so I think that concludes the design review. Does anybody want to say anything about 213, which we've already covered on page 9? That's the car parking. I think we gave that a fair run for its money, did we? Any other comments? at this stage?
I think
No, I think
again,
we're-
it's just about listening to the community. So we listened to the community, and I think it was really valid representation. So yeah, although with my finance hat on, I'd have liked the capital receipt. I bow to the fact that it is needed.
Suspect that once this project takes off post construction, that this is going to fly, this area. It's going to be more and more footfall, and we're going to need more car parking space, not less. But let's fingers crossed on that at the moment. All right, so that's sorry.
Fine, Tom.
Am I okay?
Yeah.
Right, so it's like having a driving instructor. It's in there. When you tap on the desk, I'm going to brake hard. Is that it? So we're on to 214 really, and that's the operator review, which is post implementation. Now, does anybody have anything to say? Yes, Sharon, please do.
Yeah, I don't know if you mind if I ask Lydia this question. Can you explain how you think the procurement will look and work for the events and
For the events
Market.
and market. Yeah, of course. So within the recommendations, we're seeking a specialist supplier to deliver the markets and events offer. That can either be done separately or jointly as options. They will obviously be designed to meet the outcomes of the projects, but also the aspirations of the development. And I know you, from conversations with you, you're really keen to ensure that connectivity with the town centre. So what we can do within the procurement is to prioritise those opportunities for local businesses and ensure that that's incorporated within the procurement specification. Because this is a priority area for the outcomes of the project, we've also engaged 2 industry experts. They're helping us with the project overall, but they're also supporting us with the ensuring that we've got the right procurement specification for the events and markets. That includes Tim Foster, who is a expert in leisure and hospitality, and it also includes Tom Fleming, who is a leading international consultancy for both culture and the creative economy as well. So we're employing those expertise to support us with that process.
you did miss 210 out, so can I mention that as part of this? Is that all right? Yes, so to note progress made towards incorporating the law specified cultural outputs within the stockyard to improve the principal development of the cultural hub. So I think this is where we spoke about inviting all the stakeholders to be part of the design. And I just wanted to make sure that that was mentioned tonight, so that we are going to involve all the stakeholders like the theatre, cinema, people like that together in January, and I'd like to be part of that as well, please.
Happy for me to respond, Leader. Thank you. So at point 5.14.5, you can see that we had a pre-feasibility report undertaken by Tom Fleming Consultancy. The next stage is the feasibility report, and we are committed, and we have stipulated within this cabinet report that we are committed to engagement with stakeholders and Loughborough College to progress any design and feasibility for the cultural hub, which is proposed to be the exhibition hall and banqueting suite. Interject
there. It's important to emphasise this is not a different theatre. It's a cultural hub with a range of things that it will be able to offer. I'm very keen on this because there are lots of small groups. For example, the lady who runs a small group for disabled children, not the big pantomime productions, but the small groups who need a venue. And this is, to me, this is what we're making certain they have, whatever happens down the road. If the theatre is retained, that's good, but we can have both. There's no need to worry about what's going on down the road. We've got to do what we can do on that site. So that'll be, I think that's going to be something to fight for and to progress. Please, Sharon, carry on.
So that's what I meant. All these groups, the SENS group, Ruth, everybody, they all get a chance to talk and put their needs across, you know, for what they like, including the cinema, because we could have accessibility, you know, because they can't do that in the cinema. So the cinema could go to the cultural hub. So invite, you know, all those type of people around the table so we can get things that are missing, because that gap is missing. The cinema for accessibility, they leave town. So, you know, let's bring that to the town, but it help a business grow as well.
That's a really useful point, because it creates that synergy between the town and the stockyard. And I'm very grateful for that point, because clearly access to these type of venues is very difficult for disabled people. If you can draw it out in a safe and attractive area, that's really good. Yeah, I'm very grateful for that comment. That's helpful indeed. Okay. Have you got any more questions of Lydia? State? No.
Chair,
Okay.
can I just
Yeah,
add?
please do, Sarah.
I mean, just while we're discussing the cultural hub, I'm totally supportive of the proposal and going forward. I think it might have just been a slip of the tongue. I know it relates, you said about down the line, and that's another matter. In terms of the theatre, that isn't what we're considering tonight. We have to consider the stockyard. Yeah. But I think a lot of people watching us tonight will be concerned about the theatre, and certainly as member of cabinet, and I know colleagues in the room, I will give my full support to trying to keep an entity in the town. And I think that's what people will be watching tonight. But financially, we cannot move the money away from this back to the theatre. We are hamstrung in that. The government have agreed where this money will go. And I think at this point, as we discuss the cultural hub, that really needs to be highlighted. This is committed into this programme, and we do not have the flexibility to do that. And persons that might be appealing or calling for that, who are within other members of the council, that's disingenuous, because they've known this for nearly 2 years now, that money had to be moved. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, Sharon, please do.
On this note as well, I'd like to think the local trends are having outdoor productions and things like that, which is totally accessible to have on that square. So it, you know, they save the theatre, that's brilliant. If they don't, there is options in our town now because of this project. It could be outdoors, it could be on a smaller scale indoors. So, you know, there is something there, and I get their passion to save the theatre, but we do have something as a backup to say.
Anybody else on anything? Anything that we missed that you want to raise? Okay, well, I've moved the recommendations on block. They've been duly seconded. If there's no other comments, we can move to a vote. Okay, no other comments, so we'll move to vote. All those in favour, please show. None against. That's NEMCON. Thank you very much. So that concludes the business of this meeting. We've got another meeting to go to, I believe. Thank you to the members of the public who've attended and listened. I'm sorry I can't remain to discuss anything with you, but we've got another meeting to go to. But if you want to come in another time to discuss anything, you're very welcome. Please send in an email. I'm very happy to progress it and to emphasise that there's a lot of work to do yet, and members of the community will have an opportunity to have their say and give their opinions and influence the detail of what we're doing. Thank you very much.